Hi there. Happy New Year. It's me, Patrick. I just wanted to jump into the feed here and have a conversation. Just you and I. No intro, no flashy editing. Just me and your earbuds. Although, if I say something that makes me sound like a major dork, I'll edit that out. You can be sure of that. So, if you follow me or the podcast on Facebook, or if you're in the big Seance parlor group, maybe, you might recall an announcement I made at the end of November, where I announced that I was taking a brief break over the holidays. Well, I know that not everyone is on social media or in our group on Facebook, and I didn't necessarily plan on announcing that right here in your earbuds, but that break has been a little longer than I originally intended. Well, a wonderful listener and supporter of the show, Diane, reached out a few days ago, and it made me realize that I owe you all a conversation. Diane was worried that I might not be doing well or that something big was going down. Well, I can assure you that I am fine and nothing big is going down with my health. But we do need to have a conversation. And like any big conversation with family or loved ones, I've been putting it off. But I've also been taking a lot of time for myself to pause and to think because, it needs to come out right. If you've been listening for a while, you likely know that, my story I've always told around 2008 is when I started having my spiritual shift. And, I wasn't really into a lot of this stuff, paranormal, spiritual stuff before then. And in 2010, I started getting into the paranormal investigation scene. 2012 is when I needed a venue to talk and share and discuss what I was learning and experiencing. And I did that through a blog. So that was bigseance.com. That's when that all started. That was 10 years ago. And 2 years later in 2014 is when I kind of shifted into a podcast. So the blog turned into a podcast. And it's what you're listening to now. Some of you have followed me and my nerdiness since those early days, 2012, 2014. And I'd actually love to hear from you if you have been here that long listening or reading my blog, which those early ones are kind of embarrassing. But especially if you've never reached out before. I'd love to hear from you and see who those longtime devoted listeners are. It'd be nice to hear from you. Patrick at bigseance.com. You can send me an email. Well, there was a pattern for about 2-year increments, and I've talked about this before. 2008 was my spiritual shift. 2010 was paranormal investigation. 2012 was bigseance.com. 2014 was the Big Seance podcast. 2016, I kind of got nervous because I was like, what's going to happen? Is the podcast going to change into something else? And kind of kept waiting for what was going to transition in 2016. And unless I'm forgetting about something, it just, there wasn't a big transition there. And so we've been going on for years. And then COVID happened to all of us, no matter where you are, really. And a lot of us, I think, experienced this great slowing down. There's talk about what some people call the Great Resignation, which I honestly think is kind of, I kind of fall into that group, I guess. People suddenly realizing that other things are important and not necessarily wanting to work your life away and just wanting to kind of pause and reflect and slow down a little bit. So we've all been going through that. And in education, I can tell you that wasn't, as you know, that wasn't easy. That was difficult. My day job is an educator. I've been an educator and a teacher in the same school for 21 years. And I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity recently to purchase some years toward retirement. Some of you may have heard this already, but I haven't really made it official anywhere. But I can tell you that now my students know. I've kind of been waiting for my students to find out. I wanted them to find out through me. So they know, and I assure you it's going to be kind of an emotional end to the year when it gets here. But I'm ready. So at the end of the school year, I will be retiring. So it is a little earlier than the typical teacher, but that's okay. I'm seeing it as a very good thing. Although it's been it took me a while to kind of make that decision and decide that, yes, this is the right time. And with that change, I don't know if that plays a part in this, what I'm getting ready to announce, or if just planning big changes coming up and having, there's a lot of work to do between now and then, a lot to think about. I just need to have my mind on the right things, I suppose. But I am announcing a hiatus for the podcast. And I'm not sure how long. I'm not even sure kind of how to define it. Am I tired? Yes, I'm tired. Is it possible that I might be a little burned out? It's possible. Like I said, is it just I feel like I've got big changes coming and I'm kind of anxiously anticipating what life's going to be like? That could be it. I honestly really don't know. But I do know I've realized I've enjoyed this break since I announced it in November and spending more time on other things in my life outside of the studio. And so I also announced this to my Patreon supporters in November as well. And I've had my Patreon paused. So if you are a supporter there, no one is getting charged. I'm not sure when the last charge would have been. It probably would have been November. But I do want you to know it was never this hiatus and this pause, whatever it is, has never been about needing funds. Funding has nothing to do with this hiatus. I would have always done this show, whether I was getting funding or not. So, what's heading in my future is that I am potentially starting a podcast editing business, which I'm super excited about. But, I used the word potential there because I'm keeping my horizons open and I'm going to roll through this change and see what happens. But that is kind of my jam. I do enjoy editing and refining things and piecing together audio. And so I have been kind of working toward that. If you are, actually, I've helped a number of people prepare for launching a podcast or learning how to do that to the ability that I can do that. And, in the next coming months, if you are out there and you decide you do need a podcast editor, which, it's going to sound funny, but, podcast editing isn't necessarily cheap. It's, it's not like a Fiverr type thing. There is time and commitment to it. But if you are serious about looking for someone to edit a podcast, or maybe you're starting a new podcast and you have a budget for an editor, look me up. Contact me. We can chat. Some other updates. while I'm here, in this last October before Halloween, if you follow me on social media, you know that I revisited Steve and Judy Skinner's Haunted Castle House again. It's been a few years with Karen A. Dahlman. And we brought friends this time, like Marla Martinson and my friend the Mats. And that was a blast. And there's plenty of videos to check out on Facebook if you haven't checked those out. This last November, I finally had the opportunity to visit the Missouri State Penitentiary with my friends, the Mats, again, the Mats. And, you know, one of these days we should have a conversation about that. Maybe that's a conversation I should take to Facebook. It's definitely kind of added to shaping my opinion about paranormal tourism. I definitely have some opinions on some things that were going down there, but I was glad to get there. So those are just some past things that you probably haven't heard about because I haven't really had the opportunity to tell you yet. But basically what I want you to know is I appreciate you listening to me over the years and being a part of my life over the years. This podcast has been a big chunk of my life. There were certainly stretches of time for a few years where I spent just as much time on this podcast as I did in my full-time job. And I loved it, and that was okay. I've enjoyed it. And you are my Paranerd family, and you always will be. I also appreciate you letting me have this time to talk to you now. And I hope you have a spectacular 2023 where you take care of you and your needs and enjoy life. So, again, is this just a hiatus? Has the big seance served its purpose for now? It makes me sad to say that, but it's kind of true, maybe. I don't know. With such a big change coming down the road for me in just a few months, I don't feel confident really trying to define what this hiatus is. But you can be sure that all episodes will stay here in the feed. And when I do decide to bug you again, it'll be right here. So do be sure to follow or subscribe in your podcast app. BigSeance.com will always be the home of the podcast. So you can always find me there. And also, the Big Seance Parlor is a great place to mingle with like-minded paranerds. So request to join our really friendly and supportive group on Facebook. I think that's it, y'all. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. And I'll chat with you again. I don't know where it'll be or when it'll be. And you never know. We might just jump back into regular episodes soon. Like I said, I'm just rolling through this. But I love y'all. You rock. Peace out.